Someone dismisses your idea in a meeting. A family member talks over you like your words don't matter. A colleague takes credit for your work right in front of you. And you feel it, that burning sensation in your chest, the replay loop in your mind, the quiet erosion of something you can't quite name. Here's what nobody tells you. Disrespect isn't something that happens to you. It's something you unconsciously teach people is acceptable. 2,000 years ago, Stoic philosophers discovered something remarkable about human dignity. They found that respect isn't earned through aggression or demanded through force. It flows naturally to those who understand one fundamental principle. Today, I'm going to show you that principle. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why the problem was never that people don't respect you. The problem is that you've been looking for respect in the wrong place entirely. The misunderstanding. Most people think respect comes from external validation, the right title, the perfect comeback, winning the argument, making someone apologize. So they chase these things. They work themselves into the ground, proving their worth. They rehearse confrontations in the shower. They post on social media hoping for recognition. They explain themselves endlessly to people who've already decided not to listen. And they stay trapped in a cycle. The more desperately they seek respect, the less they receive it. Epictetus, who went from being a slave to one of Rome's most influential philosophers, taught something that seems counterintuitive at first. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Wait. Be content with being disrespected. That sounds like terrible advice, but here's what he actually meant. When you need external validation to feel worthy, you give everyone around you power over your internal state. Your peace depends on whether someone else chooses to acknowledge your value. You've made yourself a hostage to other people's opinions. The Stoic approach is completely different. It starts with a truth that changes everything. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the Roman Empire, wrote this in his private journal. I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others. Read that again slowly. You already value yourself more than you value anyone else, but you treat other people's judgments of you as more important than your own judgment of yourself. That's the contradiction that destroys your dignity. Here's the Stoic secret. Respect doesn't come from controlling how others see you. It comes from becoming immovable in how you see yourself. When you genuinely know your worth, when you've anchored your value in something internal and unshakable, disrespect becomes impossible. Not because people stop trying, but because their attempts slide off you like water off stone. They can't disrespect you because you're not asking them to validate you in the first place. This isn't arrogance, it's self-possession. And the ancient Stoics developed specific practices to build it. Let me show you exactly how. Practice 1. The inner citadel. The Stoics talked about something called the inner citadel. It's the core part of yourself that no external circumstance can touch. Your character, your principles, your ability to choose your response. Marcus Aurelius taught, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Here's how to build your inner citadel in practical terms. First, identify your core values. Not what you think you should value, what you actually value. Write down 3 principles you're unwilling to compromise on. Maybe it's integrity, kindness, competence. Whatever they are, name them clearly. These become your internal reference point. When someone disrespects you, you don't ask, how dare they treat me this way? You ask, did I act according to my principles? If yes, you're untouchable. Their opinion becomes irrelevant noise. I'll give you an example. Last year, someone publicly criticized my work in a way that felt deeply unfair. My first instinct was to defend myself, to prove they were wrong, to make them acknowledge my competence. Then I stopped and asked a different question. Did I do my best work according to my own standards? The answer was yes. I'd been thorough, honest, and skilled in my approach. That answer didn't come from them, it came from me. And once I had it, their criticism lost its power. They could think whatever they wanted. My assessment of my work remained unchanged. That's the inner citadel functioning as it should. External judgment couldn't penetrate it, because I'd already judged myself by standards that mattered. When you build this consistently, something remarkable happens. You stop seeking permission to value yourself. You stop waiting for others to recognize your worth before you recognize it yourself. And paradoxically, that's exactly when people start treating you differently. Practice 2. Negative visualization. Here's a Stoic practice that sounds strange but works powerfully. Regularly imagine people disrespecting you. Seneca taught his students to mentally rehearse difficulties before they happened. He called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Why would you visualize disrespect? Because when you've already considered it, processed it, and decided how you'll respond, the actual event loses its power to shake you. Here's how to practice this. Take 5 minutes today. Imagine someone dismissing your contribution in a meeting. See it clearly. Feel the initial sting. Then mentally practice your Stoic response. You pause, you breathe, you remember your inner citadel. You recognize that their dismissal doesn't change the quality of your work or the validity of your perspective. You respond calmly, or choose not to respond at all, depending on what the situation truly requires. By rehearsing this internally, you're training your nervous system. When the real moment comes, and it will, you won't be caught off guard. You've already been there in your mind. You've already chosen your response. The untrained person reacts with shock and hurt because they never imagined someone would treat them that way. The Stoic stays centered because they've already processed this exact scenario and determined it doesn't threaten what actually matters. This isn't pessimism, it's preparation. And preparation is what separates those who are controlled by circumstances from those who remain free regardless of circumstances. Practice 3. The view from above. Marcus Aurelius practiced something he called the view from above. He would imagine himself zooming out, seeing his life from a distance, seeing the entire empire from space. From that perspective, individual slights and disrespect became tiny, almost invisible. You can use this same technique. When someone disrespects you, zoom out mentally. Imagine watching this scene from far away. Two humans, on a small planet, having a brief interaction that won't matter in a week, a month, a year. This isn't about minimizing your feelings, it's about seeing them in proper proportion. I remember a situation where someone spoke to me with profound condescension. In the moment it felt huge. My ego was screaming. I wanted to put them in their place. Then I practiced the view from above. I imagined this scene from a distance. Two people in a room. One person chose to speak disrespectfully because of their own insecurities, or bad day or character flaws. The other person, me, had a choice. Absorb this as truth about my worth, or recognize it as information about their state of mind. From that elevated perspective, the choice was obvious. Their behavior said nothing about my value. It said everything about their current state. That's what the view from above gives you. Perspective, context, the ability to see that most disrespect is about the other person's internal struggle, not your actual worth. Epictetus taught, when anyone provokes you, remember that it is actually your own opinion provoking you. The disrespect itself is just sound waves or written words. It's your interpretation, your belief that they have the authority to diminish you, that creates the wound. Change the interpretation, and you change everything. Practice 4. Demonstrate, don't explain. Here's where most people go wrong. Someone disrespects them, and they immediately start explaining why they deserve better treatment. Actually, I have 10 years of experience in this. For your information, I graduated top of my class. You don't understand what I've accomplished. Every word of explanation is an admission that you need their approval. You're essentially saying, please look at my credentials and validate me. The Stoics took a different approach entirely. They demonstrated their worth through consistent action and let the results speak. Seneca wrote, "It is the sign of a weak mind to be unable to bear wealth and prosperity." What he meant was this: people of true substance don't need to announce it. Their character shows itself naturally through their behavior over time. When someone disrespects you, the Stoic response isn't a defensive speech, it's continued excellence in your actions. You don't waste energy proving yourself to someone who's already decided not to see clearly. You invest that energy in being excellent regardless of whether anyone notices. I've watched this principle transform professional relationships. A colleague consistently received credit for work others did. The team members who lost recognition tried explaining repeatedly. It never worked. One person took a different approach. She stopped explaining. She simply continued producing exceptional work, documenting it quietly, and letting quality speak. Within 6 months, leadership noticed the pattern. The recognition she never demanded started flowing naturally because her competence became undeniable. That's demonstration over explanation. It requires patience. It requires security in your own assessment of yourself. But it works because it's grounded in reality, rather than persuasion. The transformation. Here's what happens when you practice these principles consistently. People who used to dismiss you start paying attention when you speak. Not because you demanded it, because you stopped needing it. And that shift in energy is palpable. The disrespect doesn't disappear entirely. Difficult people will always exist, but it stops landing. You've built something solid inside yourself that external opinions can't crack. You'll notice yourself responding differently. Someone makes a cutting remark. Instead of the old spiral of hurt and rehearsed comebacks, you feel a pause, a moment of space where you choose your response consciously. Sometimes you respond with calm clarity. Sometimes you say nothing at all because you recognize the situation doesn't deserve your energy. Either way, you remain in control of your internal state. Marcus Aurelius described this beautifully. The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. You don't become disrespectful back. You don't sink to their level. You simply become unreachable by their tactics because you've anchored yourself in something they can't touch. That's real power. Not the power to control others, the power to remain yourself regardless of how others behave. Realistic expectations. Let me be honest with you. This isn't a magic formula that stops all disrespect overnight. You'll still encounter difficult people. You'll still have moments where disrespect stings. You're human. The Stoics were human too. Marcus Aurelius struggled with anger and frustration despite being the emperor and a philosopher. What changes is your relationship with disrespect. It stops being something that can fundamentally shake you. It becomes an external event you can observe, process, and respond to from a place of strength rather than wounded ego. Some people also won't respond to your centered approach. They'll keep pushing, keep disrespecting, keep trying to get a reaction. In those cases, the answer isn't better Stoic practice, it's boundaries, distance, limiting your exposure to people who are committed to treating you poorly. These principles work best with people who are capable of mutual respect but have fallen into bad patterns. They work when you're trying to reclaim your own dignity, not when you're trying to fix someone else's character. The Stoic secret to never being disrespected again isn't a technique for controlling others. It's a practice of making yourself internally unshakable. When you build your inner citadel, when you prepare mentally for difficulties, when you maintain perspective, when you demonstrate worth rather than explaining it, you become someone who can't be diminished by external judgment. Epictetus taught his students, make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens. You don't control whether someone chooses to disrespect you. You absolutely control whether that disrespect penetrates your sense of self-worth. That's the difference between seeking respect and embodying it. When you seek it, you're always dependent on whether others give it. When you embody it, you carry it with you regardless of external circumstances. So here's my question for you. What's one situation where you've been seeking respect externally that you need to reclaim internally? Drop a comment and share your thoughts. If you want to continue building this unshakable inner strength, subscribe to Stoic Forge. Every video here gives you practical ancient wisdom for modern challenges, helping you develop the kind of dignity that can't be taken from you. Hit the like button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and remember, you don't need anyone's permission to value yourself. That power was always yours. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.